Welcome to the Art of Marketing Operations, a Taylor podcast. I'm Glenn Bottomley, and today my guest is Rebecca Robinson, Head of Marketing Operations at Ben & Jerry's, a worldwide company committed to making the world a better place by promoting peace, love, and ice cream, and offers a wide variety of ice cream, doggy desserts, non-dairy desserts, and snackable dough, all made with high-quality, ethically sourced ingredients. Thanks for joining me today, Rebecca.
Thanks, Glenn. I'm super excited to be here.
So I need to know, first off, what is your all-time favorite Ben & Jerry's ice cream flavor?
You know, Glenn, we get this question all the time at Ben& Jerry's, and it's a tough one because there's always new exciting flavors that our team is coming out with. I would say fish food and Give Me Some More is two top favorites of mine. And especially Give Me Some More if you've ever had it. I can never get enough of our graham cracker swirl in it.
That's fantastic. So do employees actually get free ice cream?
We do. So one of the amazing perks is that we can get up to 3 free pints a day. Around the office, we actually have chest coolers. And I probably have about 9 to 12 pints in my home freezer on any given day. And it really keeps my husband and my kids really happy.
That's incredible. You get three a day.
You can take up to three.
Oh my.
The longer that you've been at the company, every few weeks you might bring some home. But when you're new to the company, I've got to say, you are going through and just testing a lot of the new flavors that you may not have tried before.
Oh, that's fantastic. That is so fun. And I've also heard that there are, is it K9 to fivers at Ben& Jerry's where, you have dog-friendly offices, encouraging employees to bring their dogs into the office. Is that correct? And is that something that you yourself take part in?
We do. So we call them our K9 to fivers at Ben& Jerry's, and it's always been a canine friendly company. It does add a lot to our culture. So basically, what we do is us humans can bring them into the office, and as you go through and you see different offices and cubicles, if there's a baby gate, that's usually where you'll find a little dog with their head sticking out of it or just saying hello. But it really adds a lot. So we have a lot of team members that will bring their dogs in. It brings a different energy. A lot of people find it really relaxing. And then there's kind of like pup hangouts. So a lot of times people will bring their dogs out at the same time, and the dogs can get some energy out. Employees get some fresh air. And really, it's kind of a nice sense of community. I personally have a dog, Petrie, that I bring her to work. So she loves our day. We drop the kids off. She goes for a ride in the car. We get to go into the office together, and she doesn't have to be alone. So one of the cool things is for anybody listening, if you're interested in seeing some of our K9 to fivers, we actually have a page on our site dedicated to pictures and profiles of all of our dogs that come into the office frequently.
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, obviously, that must make for an incredible company atmosphere. Can you share a little bit more about, I mean, what is it like, both working at Ben& Jerry's, but also with such a wonderful and reinforcing benefit, such as, being able to bring the dogs in and how much of a focus the company puts on that?
Yeah, I think at Ben and Jerry's in general, it's very much a sense of community feel. So whether you're a dog lover or you're not, it's really about being inclusive, having it be a workplace where you're relaxed, but you're energized, you're inspired, and you can be creative. And even if you come to our office at some point, or anybody does, like we have curvy walls, and we have a slide in the front that you can go down, and a lot of visitors who come by will go down our crazy slide. And so I think it's more around like, how do we have an environment that really feeds that culture and kind of who we are as a company, and offers that environment for people to be creative and be themselves.
Excellent. Now, Rebecca, you've worked at Ben& Jerry's now for 4 years. And then you've also been with the Unilever family of companies for about 7 years. So what drew you to work for such well-known brands?
Yeah, I think throughout my career, I've had a really cool opportunity. Starting out in the industry at J&J, working on brands like Tylenol and Listerine, and moving to a small company, Mentholatum, where you're working on Hada Labo and Soft Lips, to Unilever, where you get the exciting, Dove and Vaseline and some of these really well-known brands. One of the things I've always really loved about Ben and Jerry's is how authentic they are, that they're really trying to make a difference in what they're doing. I remember splurging on their ice cream because when I was in college, late night ice cream, and I was like, oh my gosh, what a cool company. And my husband did his master's in Vermont, and I remember going to the factory and being like, one day I really want to work here. And so is throughout my career, I started reaching out to people at Ben and Jerry's and saying, I really want to be a part of this, and I want to be a part of something that stands for more than just a job, but is actually really trying to make a difference from a grassroots lens, in is proving a sustainable business model that you can do business in a different way and you can be really successful at it. And so what I think that's really in a nutshell what like brought me to Ben and Jerry's is that working for all of these exciting and cool brands throughout the years. It's been amazing, the experiences, but really looking for one that aligns with the values and what I hope to become a small part of to make a difference.
Yeah, well, and you sort of touched on it there, but can you expand a bit on sort of the mission of Ben and Jerry's? Because I know that, as you just stated, Ben and Jerry's really believes that ice cream can change the world, and I believe that there's a sort of a three-part mission. And so you talked about the importance of mission and what that means to you, that draws you there. So can you expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah, definitely. When Ben and Jerry started the company, and they are two real guys, if people don't know who are listening, um, they really started it and founded it with the idea that linked prosperity can work. There's a sustainable model that can work for everybody who's a part of the business to have sustainable growth. And when we truly think about our communities, that everybody can thrive. And so the whole company has been founded off of a three-part mission, which has remained steadfast in the guidance of how we even operate today. And so the three-part mission is around three areas: product mission, economic mission, and social mission. And the product mission is all about making the best ice cream in the world with the highest quality ingredients, um, having a high standard for quality business practices, respecting the earth and the environment and everything that we're doing, multiple layers deep, and ultimately providing something that is super amazing. We have the economic mission, which is about a sustainable financial growth for all of our stakeholders we engage with. So this includes vendors, basically anybody that we interact with. We want to make sure that it's a sustainable, profitable business for all. And then our social mission, and this is really around finding ways to, make something better. And so this relates to social, environmental issues. The goal is to bring awareness and support action, and overall, hopefully, improving the quality of life for people, whether locally, nationally, or internationally. So, what's really cool is we have, different areas in this. We have an activism team that works in grassroots with organizations. We have a sustainability team who's working on making sure that we have the most sustainable practices across our whole areas of the business. So there's lots of depth there to make sure that we're constantly doing the right thing, and also continuing to try to progress whatever we can.
Yeah, that's excellent. I appreciate that review of product economic and social. Can you then now shift a little bit and just talk about how these three areas and this concept of changing the world? How do you bring this into the role that you're now in? In terms of how does this impact the work that you're doing from a marketing operations perspective?
It's a great question. From a marketing operations perspective, I think what's so cool is that we work so cross-functionally with all of the different teams to bring the go-to-market strategy to life. So, when we think about it, really in marketing operations, you're an enabler in helping all of these other teams do what they're doing by providing a profitable growth in a way that we're driving that economic mission. And then there's a lot too that we can do across marketing operations, whether it's with industry partners. So if you think about retailers, vendors, other areas of the business, it's also about like how do we change some of the systems? How do we make sure that equity is a part of those systems? How do we drive sustainability? How are we a really good partner in hopefully inspiring learning from others and continuing to progress for people that we're working with? It's not just about Ben and Jerry's working with people or Ben and Jerry's doing the work. It's really about how do we get more people involved in this so that we can really make a bigger difference. And so I think that that's where us in marketing operations enabling and driving some of the budgets, driving the growth and the strategies and everything, and then working with people on some of those like systemic processes or places where we can really drive equity and change. That's where we can really make an impact.
And what's interesting, and when I hear you describe that, is it's like it feels as if you're always looking through that broader lens. It's not about necessarily just driving growth. It's not necessarily about one creative strategy, but it's that it feels that you're always going back up to check, does this gel with our overall strategy? It seems like just in how you're describing it, there's always that, is this aligning with our overall mission? Did I get that right?
Absolutely. I think it's something we think about all the time is are we truly driving something that's sustainable and are we doing the right thing, and having that three-part mission is something that we're constantly thinking about. It really offers an opportunity to tie it back to are we driving that strategy? Are we doing the right thing? Are we making the right choices? And I think it's super helpful is kind of a roadmap, and it continues to evolve. But I think by having that really strong, mission that we're trying to accomplish, it makes it easier to make these decisions.
Well, and I know that when we chatted before, you had talked to me a bit about, just how fun, Ben and Jerry's is as an organization to work with. But I know that you had mentioned that it's the part that you love so much about marketing operations and what you do every day is you sit at sort of this intersection between marketing, strategy, creative, the goals, of the organization, et cetera, to drive the P&L. Is there a favorite part of your job?
It's funny because when people ask me what I do on any given day, and I think for all of the marketing operations professionals out there, sometimes it can be really hard because you're like, what problems did I solve today? And so what I think is one of the things that I love from a marketing ops lens is that every day is so different. You never know what sort of fire drills could come up, what sort of problems you might need to solve. And so when I think about it, I think of marketing operations as you're really a true connector, and you're working so much cross functionally. And so it's such a cool space because some days you get to spend working on a 5-year brand strategy, and then you go into meetings with innovation teams or R&D or supply chain or finance to figure out, how do you bring that product to market with those teams. How do you work with field sales and retailers in some of those meetings to how are you making sure that your fans are really happy and you're driving, successful marketing programs. So I think what's really cool is like, and are you doing that from a sustainable financial lens? And so what you just mentioned in the lead up is that you get to span in marketing ops the strategy to some of the technical pieces to the execution, but you get to do it with all these amazing cross-functional partners while also solving a lot of problems and trying to come up with like creative solutions.
Yeah, I love that. And that, for me personally, that's one of the things that I absolutely love about just marketing overall as a general discipline, but particularly marketing operations as well, because it brings in so much of the data side. It brings in that creativity, but it's you just can't get the work done without partnership, with the other functional areas and teams that you're working with. Now, when obviously with when we did our introduction, Ben and Jerry's has so many amazing products, and that span so many different types of customers, that you are targeting. So generally, who are you really trying to reach with your marketing efforts? Does it completely depend on the product set that you're going after, or are you looking for a certain type where, for example, Ben and Jerry's mission really will resonate with them? And I really want to kind of dive into how do you actually nurture relationships with your various sets of customers?
So I think one of the interesting pieces is um, if you take a step back on, who you're trying to reach from even taking a look at marketing across a lot of the different brands that we've worked on, marketing has evolved so much and consumers are so much smarter than ever before. And so I think that in understanding who you're trying to reach, it's so important for brands to truly know who your consumer is. So, who's buying you versus who's engaging with you might be slightly different. What channels are people engaging you in? Because there's now so many different opportunities for people to engage with you across, technology, as we know, or some of the more traditional marketing tactics that are there. And so I think what is so important in trying to figure out who you're trying to reach with your marketing is who is that consumer and how are they engaging with you? And then as as you go about nurturing them for each brand, like for Ben and Jerry's versus Listerine versus some of the other brands, it's really how do you go about determining where to meet those people and what sort of messages do you want to have? So I think I've seen throughout my career that it can be different, right? You could maybe focus on a product specific communication, or what you might find is you are trying to just drive general awareness of your brand. And so I think it depends on where your brand is in your life cycle, how aware people are of it, and then what are you trying to communicate with them and how are you trying to engage them. And I think it differs a lot for each brand.
Yeah, that's a great comment about not only deciding where to meet them, the messages that you want to serve to them, but also your comment about where the brand is in terms of its brand life cycle. I think that's a very powerful comment because it's almost that overlay. Because if you're a brand new brand, if your market doesn't know about you, you have to do much more on the awareness side as opposed to nurturing or what have you. And so, from that perspective, what advice would you give if somebody is at the early stage of brand awareness and how you engage with them versus a very mature brand, and how you engage with them? What experiences would you have that you could provide advice either way?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're a new brand, it depends on who's your target market because um, as we know, there's, from a full funnel marketing mix at the top of the funnel, you can drive general awareness. So there's so many different tactics where you can grab a ton of the population and send a communication out. So if you're trying to drive mass awareness, there's opportunity there. But if you're a niche new brand and maybe you have very specific target audience that you're looking for, you might want to do something that's a little more defined from maybe it's a digital perspective that you're going after and you focus more on digital marketing or more targeted. I think it really, if you're niche or new, depending on what your product or your service or your offering is, who are you going after and where are those people? And then how do you meet them there? So, like a lot of times, whenever I've been at companies, it goes back to the question of like, are you just trying to drive awareness or are you trying to drive awareness and trial? Or ultimately, are you trying to drive that conversion? And I think that those answers will then help you define like how do you go about approaching the people that you're trying to reach.
That's excellent. And then, when you think about your career, and so many of the well-known consumer brands that you've mentioned, here, during this podcast, what have been some of those best lessons that you've learned along the way, specifically to build brand equity?
So for brand equity, I think this is such an interesting question. Um, Authenticity and consistency are two of the key pieces, I think, because people getting what they expect from you and being consistent in that, providing consumers with the experience that you're communicating to them. So, not overselling it, not over communicating what you're offering, and understanding what consumers think of your brand or your company and where do you sit with them. Sometimes it's really tough, but you have to sit down and really listen to people and what they think about your brand and where are there issues and opportunities that you can help address for people. And then also maintaining and protecting is also really important for brand equity because whether you're a new brand or new company and building it out, or you've been really established, holding to certain guidelines and guardrails, which automatically then really help that authenticity and consistency that you're building with people, becomes really important because when we think about it, brand equity and growing brand equity is about people getting what they expect and trusting and knowing that you're going to be providing exactly what you're talking to them about.
Very well said. I think as you described your first two, authenticity and consistency. Kudos to you, kudos to Ben and Jerry's, because if I think back to how long I have been aware of the brand, I think authenticity is absolutely a word that I would use when I would describe Ben and Jerry's, and certainly consistency. Because I think from year after year, product after product, every product extension after product extension, I think everybody would say who has familiarity with the brand would say that there is absolutely a consistency in message from the Ben and Jerry's team. So I think the way that you've described that would certainly describe very high brand equity, in terms of, the anecdotal comments here for me, but also your comments about maintaining and protecting, because I think that is something that I think you don't, it's sort of the result, authenticity and consistency as a result of that focus on maintaining and protecting the brand. You are the steward of the Ben and Jerry's brand, and I think you're doing a fantastic job in driving that equity forward.
Thanks.
Now, what about the marketing mix? So when you think about the marketing mix, can you share some of your views on how do you use both print as well as digital tactics to drive brand awareness and growth? Some of the actual tactics side.
Yeah, I mean, I think we started getting into it a little bit ago. Is it depends on I think it depends on a lot of what you're offering for your brand or your company, and then what is your goal? Is it driving awareness in where your consumers at? So I think how a brand leverages it's been really interesting because some brands will leverage print really heavily. And you'll still see them in magazines and newspapers in a lot of different print offerings. Some will be very digital focused, especially newer brands, because depending their target consumer might be, only on their phones and only being inundated with digital ads and everything from an engagement perspective. And then there's some brands that from a traditional TV commercial, they might be funneling a ton in for general awareness. And that has even evolved with all of the new streaming services. So there's so many different options now. And I've seen some brands really drive that traditional print and commercial. I've seen some really be in that digital space. And then there's brands that you can see use a combination. So maybe depending on if you're trying to really just drive awareness to a really high circulation of people, you might go more of the traditional route from a marketing mix of print, as well as like freestanding inserts in different promotions, where depending on who you're targeting, and if you're ultimately going to try to convert people at the lower funnel, maybe you're focusing more on digital consumer promotions, different ways that you're trying to really engage them and then drive that conversion. So I think that for each brand that is looking at their marketing mix, it probably depends on who their target consumer is and what they're offering. And it's probably a wide spectrum of what they include from all of those different tactics to make it really successful. One of the pieces that I would say is, I'll never forget this, really early in my career, one of my mentors said, always keep in mind, like, first where you're meeting someone. And so if it's online or if it's in a magazine or in their house, how do you then bring them on this journey with you, right? And so how do you kind of bring them along the story or the journey? And so first they meet you there, but then how do you engage them once you're in store 15 feet out, 10 feet out, 5 feet out? And if you think about that path to purchase, where are you meeting them and where are you bringing them along your journey?
That's excellent, and that is a great description, as you described, from the like in a store, 10 feet out, 5 feet out, etc. As they get closer and closer to the product, and then how do you want that engagement to be? What do they see about the brand? Everything from the packaging to store display, etc. I think that's great, but I think that what is also interesting in a B2B context with what you just said is, where are you first, meeting your buyer, and although it may not be 15 feet out, but if it is, 6 months before a contract coming up, 3 months before a contract coming up, 1 month before a contract coming up, what is the experience that you want your buyer to have? So an interesting tie between, both in a B2C environment as well as a B2B environment. So I think that's very, very interesting description. So when you think about just the marketing operations discipline overall, how have you seen the marketing operations discipline transform over, say, the past 10 years? And how do you anticipate that marketing operations is going to transform over the next 10 years, let's say?
I think a lot has changed over the last 10 years. If you think about the rise in smartphones, social media, the rise of content marketing, consumers being inundated with so many messaging, so many different ways that, you have to figure out how to stand out more. And engagement across the internet, even if you think about, as we've continued to evolve, even over the last 2 years now, the internet and how we use the internet, both across work and personal time, it's evolved even faster than I think we could probably have thought about due to COVID. And so a lot has changed with access to insights and data, connecting with consumers in more versatile ways. People have a better sense of when a brand is being authentic and transparent. They can do their homework on brands and companies and really, vote with your wallet, right? And marketing's really holistic now. Consumers are looking for more information. They care about honesty. They care about kind of looking under the hood, so to speak. And so you really need to understand your consumers. What are truly their needs or wants? And then how do you meet that? Because you can't just provide, like, with so much being personalized and customized now across a lot of different industries, you can no longer just put one advertisement out and have that be super successful. You really have to figure out what people want and need and then meet them there.
Well said. Very well said. Well, Rebecca, before we wrap up today's episode, what is the main takeaway that you want to leave our audience with in understanding the challenges facing marketing operations executives today?
I think there's three things that I would leave everyone to think about, and people who are listening are probably thinking about this is um, listen to your people, trust them, and give them the space to test new ideas and concepts as everything keeps evolving. The second piece would be really stay true to communicating honestly about what you're offering as a brand or a company. Don't try to be something you're not, and consumers and employees can see faster than ever if it's authentic and if it's really something that they want to be a part of. And then lastly, and this is something that I was talking to a mentor about a couple weeks ago, is having a vision and a multi-year strategy is key. With this ever-changing environment that we have in the world that we're living in, it's really easy to get caught up in wanting to change your vision or your strategy to meet what's happening today. But it's really important to hold true to what you're trying to accomplish. And you can make subtle tweaks, but not getting caught in the hamster wheel of reinventing your strategy to encompass all of these shiny new things.
Excellent. Well, that wraps up this episode of The Art of Marketing Operations. Thank you so much for joining us today, Rebecca. Until next time, stay safe, take care, and thank you for listening.